Hello learners, this is Pradeep Nayak here, CEO of Fuel Media Solutions Private Limited. I welcome you all to another exciting session on event management. Today we're going to talk about risk management process. We already started talking about risk management process in my previous session, and we discussed about risk assessment and risk evaluation in that. Today we're going to talk about risk evaluation and management plan. That's the main topic. We're also going to touch upon risk control, and we're also talking about risk reporting. With these three topics, we end the entire chain of sessions that we conducted on risk management. Allow me to share this presentation, which will be easy for you to understand what we're going to talk about today. So, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about planning for risk prevention and management. So, risk prevention and its management is the next big step in the risk management process. And these are made to combat the identified risk or their probability or consequences. In this step, a risk manager uses all his resources to ensure the success of the event. So, what it states is that the risk prevention and management process that we apply here as a part of the risk management process is purely on the risks that we are able to identify, the risks that we are able to list out even before the event. So these are the things that we can do, and we can plan for the prevention of it. So how do we use different methods to treat such risk? First, it's very simple. First one is elimination. Steps can be taken in the plan to eliminate the risk altogether. For example, erecting covered walkways to protect spectators from rain can eliminate the risk of ruining an event due to rain. Exactly. So this is a very simple example, but a very easy example that has been given. So steps that we do is like there are a lot of risks that we identify at the beginning of the event. So by taking a proper preventive measures, we'll be able to eliminate that risk completely. So we can do that at the time of identifying risk. So the first step is elimination. So how do we eliminate it? Simple. If people are getting wet during the rain, they'll not be able to enjoy the show. So what do? Is take care by putting up a shelter at the pathway. Substitution. To avoid the risk of collapse of structures due to overcrowding, temporary structures can be substituted by choosing a better designed grandstand made of concrete. Now this again is subject to the kind of venue that we're going to work. So substitution is, for example, if I'm doing a stage, and if it's a 7 feet stage or an 8 feet stage that we're going to use in terms of height, then I'll have to also keep in mind the structure of the stage, how it is done and everything. At the time of, like, if anything goes wrong and if it collapses, what is the backup? So is the stage put up on a concrete structure so that in case it falls or it collapses, there is a concrete structure as a cushioning. So we have to take care of all this. So substitution, or the second option, is what we have to see. So making a concrete thing new instead of that thing is might be a little challenging or might be expensive, but it's an example that has been suggested. Distribution of risk. Sometimes risk can be distributed across different areas to reduce its impact. For example, ticketing can be spread over different areas to reduce the impact of any theft. Exactly. So this is a good example for distribution of risk. We always know at the time of ticketing, one is gathering of crowd, since you will not be able to handle so much crowd in like just a few counters. So how do you do is that if there's 1,000 people that we're going to expect, then you make sure that you have 10 counters or 20 counters, depending upon the kind of crowd who's going to come. And second thing is, if it is completely a cash managed ticket counter, then we have to divide it so that in case there is any kind of a theft or anything that happens, then we have multiple control centers to cover that. So distribution of risk. Second is isolation. So risky activities or use of noise equipment can be done in isolation to avoid risks like fire accident. So isolation is, for example, where we park the generators, where we're gonna keep the diesel. So a lot of times what happens is the backstage the generator is parked, backstage the diesel cans are kept for the generator, and all those things happen. So you are increasing the probability of your risk by doing that. So rather what we do is we do a safe and secure place for generators to park. We do a safe and secure, like you keep the diesel away, that in case of any risk or mishap that happens with the generator, at least the diesel containers next to them are taken care, that it doesn't go up in fire because it's kept at a certain distance, or it is covered amongst sand and kept, and all those things. So isolation is another way that we can prevent risk. Second is the fourth one is engineering control. They can be effectively used to reduce various risks. For example, using safety barriers and fences can limit access and can be used effectively for controlling managing crowd. So exactly, engineering controls is what we say is that like if people who have not taken tickets who try to enter the venue, so how would you safeguard is by putting barricade. How do you have a sound that is on the ground doesn't directly impact our listeners. We use you by using trussing or by using scaffolding, we hang the sound from a certain height so that it directly doesn't impact or create any kind of risk for the listeners in the first few rows. So many such engineering controls can be implemented to prevent any kind of risk in that particular area. Administrative control. Various administrative controls like erecting warning signs and training staff well in safety procedures can help in reducing the risk. This is something which I think, as a part when we're doing the identifying the risk, when we are doing a meeting with different stakeholders who are involved in executing the event, this is the and I think we is a very important point that has been that will be discussed and has to be discussed is about training the staff on different safety measures. The staff who is working there has to wear proper gear, for example wearing proper shoes or wearing proper helmet or something, or wearing, if they are doing scaffolding work, they should have enough police and everything safety equipment that they're already wearing. Everything has to be taken care so that there is any kind of mishap can be averted, and that will not further create any risk in terms of executing the event. Contingency methods. They're effective in dealing with situations in which risk cannot be completely avoided. For example, developing exit doors, evacuation routes, and provision or firing extinguishers. So, see it. If it is a fire, it is a fire. If it is a stampede, it is a stampede. Things which cannot be controlled, or if it is something that goes wrong. But how can, what is the contingency method for that? Is creating good amount of exit doors, creating good amount of ramp for people with disability, creating good amount of signages, creating good amount of extinguishers. So contingency plans or methods to be in place to avoid any kind of risk, and that is a part of risk prevention. Or risk transfer. Subcontractors can be hired to share the liability for different components like equipment and structure. So as in when we hire different stakeholders to execute the event, so if it is kind of overwhelming or it is kind of overburdening on a particular vendor, ensure it is equally divided amongst the subcontractors. So the level of risk that is taken by just one person because of overworking, people are like working day and night at the venue. So because of overworking, it should not happen that a person kind of neglects or kind of um, oversees a few risks that is there in his purview of area that he is operating. For example, people were working on fabrication for 2 days, 2 nights. Like towards the end of second night, they're completely tired. They're not able to just working like machine. So how do we overcome this? That have enough subcontract, have enough manpower, so that they don't oversee or they don't skip any part of the risk no process that we gonna involve all the safety training that we take. So risk prevention and management plans are prepared separately for each of the event, because each event in itself is a different setup altogether in terms of organizing it and in terms of executing it. But so every event actually requires a tailor-made risk management plan. And but there are three main components that we have to or three main categories that we have to divide that plan into. So the risk management plan can be further divided into three main. That is, one is preventive plan or plan to minimize the risk, contingency plan, and crisis plan. This is very so. Whatever your prevention will happen under these three categories. Under these three categories, we will talk about how in detail we'll do it. That will go into the next level. But right now, yes. So whenever you're preparing a prevention plan for the event risk, so these are the one is preventive plan. Was when that is something that you can do so that we can avoid it completely. That doesn't happen. One is when it happens, what do you do? There's contingency, and one is what happens after it happens. Like all the contingency is done and everything is done, still things happen, then what do we do? So crisis plan. So these are the three important parameters or categories. Let's discuss this in detail. So let's start with preventive plan. So event risk management professional must understand that it is always less expected risk prior to the event that to deal with the crisis after it has occurred. That means it is always less expensive to manage risk prior to the event than to deal with the crisis after it has occurred. So it is always good to spend that additional 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours brainstorming and finding out what things can go wrong, rather than feeling sorry a little later. It's like this, precautions are better than cure, things like that. Yeah. Let us see how we can use the preventive plans, for example, such as making an event design. So the first thing is selecting event location. So the location of the event is considered as the in relation to services infrastructure. So the location that we choose. So when we choose the location itself, we should know what are things that is going to happen in that location. Depending on, as I told you, one common example that I gave you, like if you're doing an event on top of a hill, if you're doing an event next to the river, if you're doing next to the sea, so you know you have chosen a venue which is high on risk. Then if you're doing that, or if you're doing an event in some like remote forest or an area, then you have to see what are the risks. Do you have enough roads that you can connect at times of emergency? Is it well connected? Is there like if there are phones access, etc.? So all these things. So when you're finalizing the location, all these things has to be connected, thought about. So this comes under your preventive plan or plan to minimize risk. Provision of access and sterile routes. So as I mentioned, when you finalize the location, then you have to ensure that there is enough access routes at times of emergency. There has to be enough exit plans or routes for people to exit, or emergency routes for people to go or people to access. Designation of an emergency control point. So when we do events at bigger venues, so we have to have a dedicated or designated place where at times of emergency people can assemble, or people with any kind of emergency that has occurred will can be brought to that place. So that is designation of emergency control point. And designation of a single point of contact to liaise with any emergency services. So we'll have to kind of within our team we designate one person, that person is in contact with the fire, that person is in contact with the ambulance or the local authorities or the police information or anybody for that matter at times of an emergency. So everybody in the team through their workers would know whom to contact if any kind of emergency is done, or for each kind of an emergency we dedicate one particular person depending upon the size and scale of the event. Next is security officer and medical staff on site of the event. If you're doing any big event, I would say any event like more than 100, 200 or 300 or 500, 1,000, depending upon the scale, you have to ensure security officer, of course, we do it as a part of our security. Medical staff on the site, we can keep an ambulance and have a basic medical staff who can give like a CPR or something, a basic, or the first aid, the first response that can be done, that kind of staff can be on site. Or if you know that hospital is going to be at least an hour drive, then ensure that you have good amount of like at least one or two main doctors were there at the venue when it is about an event for thousands of people. Consider an evacuation plan, whether public and staff should assemble and evacuate, etc. So evacuation routes and signages are very important. For example, if you're doing it in a closed structure or you're doing it in open ground, but if you put up a temporary structure, ensure you have proper signages and with the information that at times of evacuation, where do people assemble, where do they stand, so that if there is a collapse in the structure, people don't get damaged and all those things. So all these things are in case of fire or any kind of those things happen, people know where to evacuate, rather than kind of creating a situation, a stampede there. These things will help. Security, if VIPs are also coming to attend the event, they'll require special security planning. Yeah, security is both. One is for the artist or the VIP who's coming, and also for the mob or the people who gonna fall or kind of come looking at the artist or the celebrity. So to take care of both the people, to take care of the artist, to take care of the crowd, both you have to have enough security planning. Placement of the resources, equipment, and people. So it is very, very important that we plan. So when we do events of big, like big stage or big structure, or people with like if it's an event which is huge, divided into multiple halls and things like that, we ensure that we create one team each in each location of the event. Like if I'm doing a 10 hall event, then I make sure that one team is there in each hall who will take care of each of these risks, and they are like they're in charge and risk both is taken care. So placement of resources, placement of everything has to be very well planned. How are you going to place your fire extinguishers, medical equipment and everything? Is it easy to access? It should not be kept in a place where it is very distant, and if any emergency happens itself, like if the ambulance itself is coming, like it takes, like you have kept it at the venue but it will take you 10 minutes or 15 minutes because it has come through the crowd and everything. No. So important or emergency services has to be kept very close to the exit or very close to the access of the people or very close to the stage, so that the people are moved immediately without any further, like if there's thousands of people who are there in the event, we cannot literally move them in few minutes. That will take time. So make sure the resources, whether it is an ambulance vehicle, is a fire engine, or the extinguisher, or the medical kit, or the people who are going to help, are positioned well and positioned in the right places. Media plan. If an incident occurs, a plan to deal with local. So ensure that if you're doing we're given to make sure your PR agency and every PR team is in place, they're already there. And it's a preventive plan is to keep things ready, like if in case anything goes wrong, they know how to handle it, and so that doesn't create any kind of negative publicity. It has happened in the past in a lot of events that things go out of hand immediately, and even without our knowledge, it would have already been in the headlines of the news channels. Next, we're going to talk about a contingency plan or emergency response plan. So, what is contingency plan? So, contingency plan is prepared in advance, but is kept in reserve and put into action based on the reality. Such a plan offers viable alternatives to the main or current event plan, and it is used to handle the problem arising. A contingency plan has many subplans, each to deal with different types of problems which may arise. Every event should have an ERP. It is usually developed in consultation with professionals or trained staff in emergency procedures like evacuation. Okay. So what is contingency plan? It is simple, a plan that we have kept ready. For example, in fire, if a fire happens, then what do I do? If the structure falls, what do I do? If the light falls, what do I do? If the truss comes crashing, what do I do? If the artist comes late, what do I do? If the dressing room is not ready, what do we do? If the food has not come on time, what do we do? If the license is not coming to us, what do we do? So this is what the contingency plan is. Okay, I'm not saying that you have to be negative, thinking very negative, but you have to have a plan to back up if this doesn't happen. And mostly, like at times, artists do come late. It happens. So what do? You talk to the MC, keep the audience engaged, or you have another performance lined up so that those things are taken care of. So contingency plan is very, very important, and emergency response plan is compared to what happens there. So the most popular plans developed as ERPs are the following. So ERPs are something, it's like it's a standard operating procedure kind of a thing that we do for each of the things, as I written under influence diagram, that if this happens, what do we do? If this happens, what do we do? Similarly, so emergency medical response, the first one. So EMR teams are central to all mega events and are first to respond to medical emergency. EMRs must be prepared to handle any medical emergency during the event. Such a team is comprised of risk management personnel, paramedic staff, life-saving and first aid equipment. So as I mentioned, it all depends upon the scale of the event. If you're talking about an event like Olympic, Commonwealth, or an IPL, things like that, you definitely need a completely trained staff or senior doctor, everybody present there as a part of the EMR team, including the risk management personnel, so that at times of emergency, they swiftly or quickly come into action and do the necessary. Second, emergency medical response. The EMR teams are central. So we have repeated this. So really sorry for this. So of paramedic staff. Okay. The next one is incident command system. The ICS, which is also known as, provides a management structure and system for conducting on-site operations. It is applicable to small-scale daily operational activities as well as major mobilization. So in the major event sites, what we do is that we install an incident command system where all these incidents are reported. It's like a central control team where anybody who's handling different events at different places, who's direct access to ICS system, they call on those ICS numbers, which is through a walkie or through the direct line number, and they inform, and from there, the immediate teams are dispatched and those things are controlled, including incident response team, which IRS is also very similar. So IRS works, which is incident response team, in sync with the incident command system, which is there. So the IRS team is defined by NDA or NDMA of government India as a combination of facilities, equipment, personnel, procedure. And so at this control room, you will have everybody from the paramedic staff, the person who's handling the fire, the person who's handling the security, and everybody are in place. They will put things into place, or they will put things into action as and when they get instructions and as and when the emergency protocols are called for. Emergency management mail list. So this is something that is required in bigger events, is that types of emergency, looking at the type of emergency, we have to prepare a mail list as to who are the people that we have to get in touch with. Mostly things would happen by call where you inform them, but yes, there is a proper documentation of things that are going to happen. So you will have to keep an emergency mail list ready, saying that the incident report is done immediately amongst all those people in that list, so that whatever they have to take as the legal or the official processing, they will do it in their end. Second, evacuation plan. So evacuation plan is also very, very important. We did discuss in the preventive thing also. So under evacuation plan, so the rapid movement of plan. So this can happen everywhere, even not even in event, but in buildings and everything. So emergency evacuation plans are developed to ensure that the safest and most effective evacuation for our present at the site of mishap. So you have put proper. If the power goes off, you're not able to see. Emergency lights are on. You have reflectors on the floor, giving you signage as to where you have to move. So all this, and also if possible, at the time of people entering the event, give them a small guide, giving them information as to where the fire exits and everything are. And there is enough and good signages for exits and everything. If in case of evacuation, you're not supposed to use the lift, you know about the stairs, but you have enough manpower who are standing next to the lift and instructing people to use the stairs. So the evacuation plan has to be prepared much before, and it is a part of the contingency plan. Traffic management, yes, when at a particular city, when you're doing the event and it's a particular location which is already high in traffic, and you have thousands of people again coming onto the same road, coming into the same location, like events like aero show that happens creates a lot of traffic jam, or it could be big concert that happen in the heart of the city, creates a lot of traffic jam. So you have to have a contingency plan. For example, if there's an ambulance movement that is going to happen during the traffic flow, so you know where to take that. You might have another a shortcut or another separate lane which is dedicated for the VIP movement or for the ambulance movement. So all these things has to be a part of the contingency plan. Stampede avoidance and crowd management. This is foremost important as a part of. So we will, as per our anticipation, as per our identifying risk level, we would have planned, for example, at the ticket counter or at the entrance. Normally, these are the places where the stampede or crowd handling might become a challenge. So you have to plan enough ticket counters. You have to plan different areas of ticket counters, different entry routes or different exit routes. So there is no stampede, there is no overcrowding. Depending upon the kind of event, people would want to get the front seat and things like that. So they kind of rush towards the entrance, and everybody's trying to get hold of the chair or the first seat, etc. So all these things has to be planned well to avoid a crowd and also to avoid stampede. For example, the Hajj in Saudi Arabia and the Kumbh Mela, these are very big examples of the large scale events that happen where there's huge crowd, and anything, any one step that goes wrong creates a stampede. So all these things has to be managed well. And so what you can do is you can do an holding area, allow a crowd as much as that when you can take. And then once they are out, then you allow the another second set of crowd who are at the crowd, where holding area. From there you release them. Then another set comes and they sit there, which I think have I experienced in Tirupati, where you have different holding areas so that the main temple doesn't get crowded. So this is one of the easy way to handle any kind of stampede. Now, let's talk about the third part, which happens is like, so we spoke about preventive. Okay, we can take care of it. If it is taken care at that level, very good. But didn't happen, then contingency. What is your contingency plan? Like you keep an plan B for all the plan A's. So that is pretty much your contingency plan. And then you have crisis plan. This is like the mishap has happened. You try to avoid how much ever you tried, but it couldn't be avoided, but it happened. So crisis can be defined as a situation which is, if left unattended, can quickly lead to major disruption of the event or can call to cancellation. So this can be anything. The line of authority often changes in crisis, and this also needs to be spelled out in the crisis plan. The event manager needs to ensure who would take charge of which activity in case of crisis. For example, in case of stampede, the press or media response to crisis immediately as a part of the crisis planning. The public relation officer or the representative should be delegated for the job of management of crisis. This person will be responsible for handling media issue, etc. Okay, sorry. So crisis planning, I'll give you an easy example. So during the Aero Show 2019 in Bangalore, what happened is that at the visitors parking area, there was a fire incident, and within a short span of time, I would say within less than few hours, the entire parking area was on fire. There were around 300 cars which caught fire. So now what would have happened? So crisis plan. One is the person who is there at that area, who is supposed to be in charge. Yes, identify him and see what went wrong immediately, or instead of investigating what went wrong, see what can be done right to stop that fire so it doesn't reach. So proper communication has to be done. So this, and at times of that, who is the person who will be in charge? Who will the person who will take over that charge and take the decisions? So you need that person in place. You can't wait for permissions. You can't when things are like there is a fire that has happened. The like there were 1,000 cars parked, 300 cars are already in fire. So how? So you immediately evacuate. You do proper announcement. People had to come. It was a good walk of 15-20 minutes from the main event area or to the parking area. So people had to rush. So the person who was there on the spot took an immediate decision of doing an announcement in that event area. The people who were there who thought their cars might be at risk at a visitor parking, they all came running. They immediately pulled back their cars, so avoiding further damage to other cars and creating any kind of mishap. But yes, now without making, this is a public event, so automatically the press was already in the public, so the event, the news went quickly to the media, and it was all over the headlines. But if it is a closed event, but if you have your own PR team or the PRO who's present there, so that person should be able to contain the information, or not information, I would say contain or curtail the news, and give it in a proper, informed and planned way, so without creating any kind of a negative publicity to the government or to the event organizer or to anybody for that matter. So these things will also form as a part of the crisis plan. So crisis management team has to be set up. Next, we come to risk control. So what is risk control? So it's a continuous effort starting from the event planning and ending after the event gets over. We've already studied how we can prepare different plans for preventing, controlling risk and everything. So it's very important to keep track of things and respond to any issues or change. So that is what risk control is all about. So during the risk management process, following controls must be used. So monitor the context. Change in our event's purpose or organization or in the broader environment could impact on a risk in number of ways. Okay. So any change or deviation from the main event plan most of the times will cause some of the problems. So we have to make sure that it is not deviated and we stick to the plan that is finalized, so that any kind of such deviations doesn't create any problem. So how do we control risk is by not deviating from the main context. Second, monitor strategies. So if the context changes, we must adapt our risk management strategies to suit the changes. For example, we need to update documentation and any other aspects of our risk management plan if necessary after reviewing the incidents and the consequences. For instance, if we estimated 2 moderate engineering accidents and there were actually 4, we may conclude that our risk assessment should be more precise in future and we need to review incidents to identify. Okay. So what it actually means is that how are we doing the reporting system? For example, as an example which has been given, that there are actually 4 people who reported fatality, but we report only 2 people. So how do we control that? So hence what we have to do is we have to do a precise reporting. That's what the outcome of it. So monitor strategies. So the strategy that is applied is very simple, is that to be precise on the information record. So if there is a fire mishap that happens, you have to be very, very clear. The fire mishap is at so-and-so area and on so-and-so region. So it has to be very precise. You just can't give a general statement. So that is one. Second is monitor risk communication. During a crisis, all communication planning is put to a test. Rapid access to relevant information is crucial. The site plan, map, good signage, and contact list become very important. So if the crisis is newsworthy, the media may become involved, and any negative publicity of the event can be very, very damaging. So there are 2 things: monitor risk communication at the time of risk or any time of crisis. So the crisis management team or the event risk management team should have access to all the information as quick as possible. For example, the layered plan, the reason being, you know, there are 10,000 people there, you should have the evacuation plan ready, which we already discussed in the contingency plan. So once you should have the map, because if it's a very big area, it's like spread across 1 kilometer, 2 kilometer, you know, like I know, we understand that you would have known the venue really well, but still it's not necessary the entire crew or the volunteers would know. So they should have access to it. You inform on the walkie, refer to that, and then tell them the routes. So you should have that access. The site map, the good signage and everything should be in place. And most importantly, how the news or the communication goes to different people and to the media is also important. It should not become like a Chinese whisper that I'm saying something, it's built on something, that, oh no, there were 10 cars got damaged. Then the person says, no, there were 1,000 cars that got damaged. Then they're saying the entire venue was on fire. So a lot of Chinese whisper situations might have. So monitoring risk communication is what, like, how do we monitor and how do we transform those information plays a very crucial role. So post-event action and analysis. So what are we supposed to do post-event is also a very important part of this. So after the event, we must hold a full debrief with all the stakeholders, with everybody in the team, and we ensure equality information is shared between the stakeholders and the team. So what worked well and what did not work well, what failures took place, for example, failures in communication system, leadership or teamwork, whatever they gave didn't follow, what incidents took place, and the grading of such incidents, which I mentioned, high, low, and everything, grading class A hazard, class B hazard. You remember that example? Yes. So grading of the incident, adequacy of plans to support the management of all activity, adequacy of training provided. So was the training that was given to people to follow the safety norms, was it more than enough? Adequacy of templates used for policy procedure guidance. So different tables, checklist, analysis sheet, influence diagram, tree structure, everything, was that enough? Survey participants, people who surveyed in terms of doing the venue or the recce, sub-respected supporters, verbal feedback, review media coverage, produce a written report with the recommendations for future event planning. So all these aspects has to be considered post-event action and analysis as a part of it, so that you have a better information in terms of identifying the next is purely on a past experience and the report that you're going to carry, which is the risk management. Is over and an event is winding up, a risk management report should be prepared after the analysis. So after we do the analysis on those points that I mentioned, those are just some reference points which is there in your curriculum. There could be more than that also. So you put everything put together, you put photos, videos, and everything, you put the contact details of the person who was involved in the risk, and then this report would help an event management. One is for future, for a similar kind of event, for a similar kind of venue. It will also help in terms of documenting if it is for the insurance process, or the purpose of reporting police and etc., or any kind of loss or damage. And it can be also shared to the stakeholders involved to prevent such things in a future event. So this is all about the risk management that we've been speaking from the last three, I would say we have done close to 4 sessions on risk management. So initially we spoke about the types of event risk, then we spoke about the safety norms, then we spoke about the risk assessment, then we spoke about risk evaluation, then we spoke about risk preventive and management plan for risk, that is our preventive plan, contingency plan, and so on. We spoke about the post-analysis risk control, we spoke about the risk post-analysis report, and with this we come to the end of the entire risk management. Yes, it has taken a lot of time. The reason being, we have given it very, very importance, being that you become event managers, but at the same time, this is equally important for you to know the risk involved. The reason being, not always risk is I would say involved in financial risk. Financial risk also can be, to a certain extent, can be recovered, but any risk or any kind of damage that has been caused to life cannot be recovered. Keeping that in mind, because we work in a very, very stressful. So I had mentioned it earlier also. Event management is one of the top 5 stressful jobs in the world. So at under high stress, we don't want you guys to collapse. If you have these things in mind, you will perform better. You know where things to be taken care, and this is the basic procedure that you have to do of analyzing your risk and taking care of it and reporting. Very simple, in 3 words actually: plan, analyze, report. Very simple. And if these things are taken care, you are a good event manager who's taking care of end to end, from event planning to risk. Everything is taken care. So thank you all. I hope this has given some kind of enlightenment, or I would say not enlightenment, but some kind of heads up on the topic risk management. You will get more clarity as and when you get be a part of any event in the future. I would say, as interns join some event, we'll go through the entire process from the beginning till the end, and probably you'll be able to connect the dots about what I'm trying to say in terms of how we apply all these procedures, from assessment to evaluation to post-analysis report and etc., on every step when we do the event. Yes, we might not find time to do all those things, but I would say take some time at the preventive stage just to make a list and analyze it. Thank you all. Have a good day and all the best.